So finally we actually lost the die roll, but this hand is pretty good. We've got a turn 3 Enraged Giant, potentially. So we can go Implement turn 1, Servo Exhibition turn 2, Enraged Giant turn 3. So 3 mana, 4/4 Trample Haste. Don't mind if I do. So hopefully that works out, and we are able to make that play. Once again, we've got plenty of lands already, even in our opening hand. So we're just looking for gas. And that's kind of the red-white deck for you. It curves out nicely, but you need the right mixture of lands and spells for sure, and you don't want too many lands because there's so many low casting cards, and even a card like Enraged Giant, which appears to be an expensive spell, we can play it for 3 mana. So, we've got that going for us. So we're gonna take 2 here. Opponent's got a fine start, it looks like. We'll see if they have a follow-up creature. And so, kind of no matter what we draw, I think we're gonna wanna play the Enraged Giant, although there's an argument to going Apprentice plus Eddy Tail, and getting in for 2. And then we could give the Giant flying next turn. So it is a pretty close decision. Alright, I guess I'm going to try waiting on it. I'm not actually confident that that's the right play, though. But the ability to give it flying next turn means that our opponent is very unlikely to block it. We still get it for 2 damage rather than 4 here. There's definitely pros and cons to both lines. I'm expecting our opponent's going to deal us 3 with the Garrison. So that's going to allow the Sea Sculptor to untap. And definitely going to just take this. Really no reason to do anything too fancy. And there's our Freighter. So our opponent's got a couple different vehicles in their deck. And we found a Freighter of our own. Though I think we just want to play the Giant. But it's close. We definitely don't want to get outraced by our opponent. We're 1 land away from even being able to go Freighter into Giant. So if we play the Freighter, we would have it on defense. We could deal our opponent 3 in the air. That doesn't seem that amazing, though. I think we just play the Giant. So I'm going to go with that play. And the question is, what do we attack with, or do we give the Giant flying? I think we do want to attack with the Eddy Tail Hawk for sure. We could also attack with Apprentice and Giant, force our opponent to crew the Freighter here. And then the Freighter would presumably trade with the Giant. And I don't think I'm upset with that trade. So I think I like this attack, give the Apprentice flying, and then offer up a trade of Giant for Freighter with our opponent taking 4. Just because if our opponent plays another creature on their turn and then crews both vehicles, we are taking 8. So we're not necessarily ahead in the race if we don't take this line. So I like being aggressive, and it looks like our opponent's considering this trade. We'll see if they actually go for it or not. It's close, right? Like, from our opponent's perspective, they're kind of forced into it, but it looks like they're not going to go for it. So that's going to mean taking 7, and we can sacrifice the implement to deal our opponent another point. And there's a Quicksmith Rebel, so we've had a pretty good draw, so has our opponent, and it's just going to kind of come down to a finish here. There's a Chief of the Foundry. That's an absurd play for our opponent. Now our opponent can crew both vehicles, and they're just absurdly large creatures, so it's really going to come down to what we can do here on our turn, because our opponent's dealing us a huge amount of damage, so this game is going to end very quickly. But we may actually have lethal here. So let's see. We can put the modification on something. We just drew the siege modification. So if we put it on the giant, we have 8 in the air. We have exactly 10. So our opponent's at exactly 10 life. We could also put it on the Inventor's Apprentice, but no, I think we just put it on the giant, and we actually have lethal damage here. And this is, what, turn 5? Like, this is just insane. So we just attack with everything, and unless our opponent is able to untap one of their creatures, we actually have lethal. So we just give the giant flying, pay our last energy. We don't even need the Rebel or the Freighter. We just drew the siege modification. And that's going to be the game. So it looks like our line ended up working perfectly, and we were able to deal exactly the right amount. So once again, this is a matchup where we want the decommissions. We saw multiple vehicles. We're going to be on the draw. We can board out a land, same as the other matches. And so we can take out one more card as well. And you'll see kind of a lot of overlap in the sideboard choices, just based on matchups and based on the cards that are you might want to take out. So Frontline Rebel, it's a card we could consider taking out. We could also consider boarding in some other cards. The Salback is a big dude. Acrobatic Maneuver, I don't think this is really the matchup for it. Let's see, we've got another Ibex in the board, but we're on the draw, so once again, I think I'm just going to take the Ibex out, go leaner, and you can see just how fast some of these games can go. Our opponent had a great draw. We also had a great draw. It was just kind of one of these situations where you have a good play, look for a better play, and that's a lot of times that happens in Limited. So here we're just going to start with the implement. Our opponent has a Night Market Lookout. We saw multiple vehicles in our opponent's deck, but we can play this Eddytail Hawk, and it's going to stop the Night Market from potentially attacking. And it stops this Hope of Garapor as well. So Eddytail Hawk, it's a pretty good card to have in this spot, depending on what follow-up our opponent has got. And it looks like pretty much the best possible follow-up in Renegade Freighter. Not at all what we wanted to see. So now we can play our own Freighter. We could also throw the modification onto the Hawk, but I think we just want to play Freighter. Our opponent can crew with both of their creatures. I think we actually just get in for the 1 damage in the air. So yeah, our opponent's gonna go for the drain with the Freighter, and we're kind of behind. We really wish we had one of the decommissions we boarded in right about now. So our opponent can crew Freighter, and that's what they're going to do. So they're going to use both of these 1/1s to crew the Freighter, and And that's going to put us down to 11. So we're going to have to try to answer this. There's a Sky Skiff, not exactly what we wanted. So a couple different creatures we could deploy in this particular spot. So if we play Iron League Steed, but we have the ability to crew the freighter with it. I could also see an argument for playing Reckless Racer, which I actually prefer. So before I do anything, I'm going to sacrifice the implement and then plan on playing Reckless Racer after that. So our opponent's going to take the 1. Then we can play the Reckless Racer and just leave our creatures back on defense, which it's not great. We're not in a good position by any means. But we're gonna keep back our freighter, plan on blocking our opponent's freighter if it gets crewed up, and then hope that our opponent doesn't have another way to get through, essentially. So, yep, just gonna crew up the freighter with the racer. I do think we want to loot here. The question is, what do we want to discard? I think we want to just discard the Alley Invasion in our hand. So our freighter, we're just going to throw it in front of our opponent's freighter. Hope that this trade works. And it looks like it's not going to. So there's the cruel finality. And that is just cruel. So yeah, that's gonna work. Put us down to 6. Our opponent's still at a very healthy life total. So I think we want to go ahead and attack our opponent with the Reckless Racer now. And we're just kind of looking for gas. And there's a decommission. Okay, so that's what we needed to try to stabilize and stay in the game. We don't have a way to trigger Revolt, but we still can just use it now and get rid of the freighter. So we're at 6, but we've finally answered the freighter, and now it's going to be a matter of if our opponent has a follow-up or not. But our opponent does have 4 cards in hand. And another Night Market Lookout. So that's pretty scary, actually. So we've got a Reckless Racer here and an Iron League Steed. So we've got some options for sure. And I think I like playing the Iron League Steed this turn. And just making a servo. And we can get in there. I think we want to get in with the Steed. And the Racer as well. We just want to try to get this game over with. So we've got some blocking potential back. We don't have great blockers. We've got 2 creatures though. The Sky Skiff, and it looks like here's a 4th Bridge Prowler. That's going to take care of the servo, but not actually that big of a deal. It's annoying, but not too bad for us. So we can just crew up the skiff now. And our opponent still doesn't have great attacks. So I think we want to still be aggressive in this spot. And we have this siege modification we can put on something. So the question is, do we want to do it now or not? So we could put the siege modification on the sky skiff. I think that play makes sense. So let's go for it. And then we can get in there with the skiff. Do we also want to get in there with the Reckless Racer? I think we do. And I'm not going to loot because I'm just going to play the Harpooner out there this turn. Just going to go land plus Deadeye Harpooner. And so we're hellbent now. We've got this Sky Skiff that's trying to get the job done. Here's a Chief of the Foundry. So that's going to make the Hope of Ghirapur bigger. So we're pretty much locked into blocking all of our opponent's ground creatures. I'm going to do that, and we'll see if our opponent has something. It looks like our opponent has something. So it's going to be Rush of Vitality. So that means we're down to 2 now. And we're able to untap. So we've got this Sky Skiff. But our opponent's got 3. Our opponent's actually hellbent here, but we don't appear to have great attacks either. Our opponent's got 3 creatures in hand. So we could attack with the Reckless Racer just in order to get a loot in right now. But we're kind of in a standoff. So yeah, I'm just going to attack with the Reckless Racer. Discard a card, and we actually drew Precise Strike there. So our opponent's going to block, and then because we just drew Precise Strike, we can just use it to get rid of this Chief of the Foundry. So now we're at 2, but we're actually in a decent spot. So our opponent's just going to pass, which is great news. Now we drew the Giant. We can actually just play that. So I think we definitely just play that here. And so we can give our opponent essentially a 1-turn window. If we attack with the Sky Skiff and the Giant, that would give our opponent 1 turn to draw something. We could also just attack with Giant and Deadeye Harpooner, leaving back the 2 flyers, which I guess that's actually the safest move. So yeah, I'm gonna leave back the flyers and attack with the 2 ground creatures. So this is gonna put our opponent down to 7. There's a leopard, so that's not gonna change anything. And we top decked a land. So now we can, I think we want to attack with our flyers. So the skiff. Well, let's see. We can attack with, if we attack with everything, is that going to be enough? We could, I don't think that would be enough, actually. So if we just attack with the Sky Skiff, our opponent has to chump, I think, with the Hope of Ghirapur, so We could also get in there with the Hawk, but yeah, I'm just going to attack with the Sky Skiff here. So our opponent just chumps with the Hope of Ghirapur. Or they could potentially take this. So this is all right. They're gonna have one turn to draw something. And we'll see if, assuming our opponent doesn't have, basically we need a removal spell in order to win here. But this is going to be an attack with everything, so we're going to be forced to make the necessary blocks in a hope that our opponent does not have the ability to kill us. So I'm going to throw our two highest defensive creatures in front of the Trampler and put the Harpooner in front of the Lookout here. And our opponent's tapping 6. This could just be a well, it looks like our opponent does have something. All right.